Welcome to Mitocast by Mito Foundation. We share information and resources to support people with Mito, their families, and the wider community. All content is created by Mito Foundation. AI text-to-voice technology is used only for the production to make our resources easier for everyone to access.
Today we'll be talking about mitochondrial disease, what it is, how it affects the body, and what it means for people living with mito and those who want to learn more.
So, what do we mean when we say mito?
Mito, short for mitochondrial disease, is actually an umbrella term, much like cancer. There are many types of mito, and they can affect people in very different ways. Some forms may impact just one organ, while others affect multiple.
Right, and at the moment there's no cure.
That's right. Treatments are limited, but research is progressing, and new discoveries are being made every year. But to understand mito, we need to start with the basics.
So what are mitochondria and why are they so important?
Mitochondria are tiny structures inside most of our cells. You might have heard them called the powerhouses of the cell. That's because they turn food and oxygen into energy. And that energy, something called ATP, powers almost everything the body does: thinking, moving, even digestion, and our heartbeat. Without enough energy, our cells and organs just can't function properly. And that's where mito comes in. When mitochondria don't work the way they should, the body struggles to make enough energy, which means symptoms can show up in many ways: fatigue, muscle weakness, seizures, diabetes, or vision loss, for example. Sometimes it's just one organ, like the eyes. Other times, many organs are affected at once.
At its core, mito is about the body not making enough energy. Different parts of your body need different amounts of energy to work well. The mix of healthy and changed mitochondria also varies across the body. That's why symptoms can look so different from person to person. At its core, mito is about the body not making enough energy. Different parts of your body need different amounts of energy to work well. The mix of healthy and changed mitochondria also varies across the body. That's why symptoms can look so different from person to person. So, how common is it?
It affects about 1 in 4,300 people. But around 1 in 200 Australians carry genetic changes that put them at risk. That's more than 130,000 people.
While mito is rare, it's not as rare as many think. Thousands of Australians are carriers of genetic changes that could cause mito. Let's talk about the different types.
There are more than 350, but here are some that are more commonly seen in the community.
Let's start with CPEOs.
CPEO, or chronic progressive external ophthalmoplegia, usually starts in early adulthood. It affects the muscles that move the eyes, so people often have drooping eyelids and difficulty moving their eyes in different directions. Symptoms usually get worse over time.
Then there's KSS,
which is short for Kearns-Sayre syndrome. This usually starts before the age of 20. It often includes the eye muscle weakness seen in CPEO, but it can also cause changes inside the eye, muscle weakness, and even changes to your heart rhythm. Whereas LHON, or Leber hereditary optic neuropathy, mostly affects vision. Central vision loss usually starts between the ages of 15 and 35. Though it can happen earlier or later, it often begins in one eye, then affects the other. There is also MELAS, which stands for mitochondrial encephalopathy, lactic acidosis, and stroke-like episodes. It affects many parts of the body, especially the brain, muscles, and heart. Symptoms can include seizures, stroke-like episodes, hearing or vision difficulties, and problems with balance.
When does MELAS usually start?
It can start in childhood or adulthood.
Then there's MRF,
which stands for myoclonic epilepsy with ragged red fibers. This often begins in adolescence or adulthood. The first sign is usually sudden, jerky muscle movements, called myoclonus. Other symptoms can include seizures, muscle weakness, and changes to memory or thinking.
What about types of mito usually seen in children?
There's Lee syndrome, which usually appears in early childhood, but can also start later. It mainly affects the brain, nervous system, and muscles. There are different forms: early onset, late onset, and what's now called Lee syndrome spectrum, which covers a wider range of symptoms, and NARP, which stands for neurogenic weakness with ataxia and retinitis pigmentosa. This type affects the nervous system and muscles. It can start in infancy, childhood, or adulthood, and often causes difficulties with movement, changes to vision, and muscle weakness.
These are just a few of the many types of mito, and the names can sound overwhelming, but the key thing to remember is that mito comes in many forms.
Yes, and each type affects people differently, and research continues to discover new types of mito.
So, what actually causes mito?
It comes down to our genetic information. Genes are like instruction manuals for our body. If the genes that control mitochondria are changed, the mitochondria can't make enough energy. Those changes can come from nuclear DNA, which we inherit from both parents, or from mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down only from mothers. Sometimes these changes are inherited, other times they appear for the first time, what we call sporadic.
There's also something called secondary mitochondrial dysfunction.
That's right. But unlike primary mito, which is always genetic, secondary mito happens when mitochondria are affected by other factors. It might be due to environmental stress, another health condition, or simply aging.
So mito is caused by genetic changes, but mitochondria can also be affected later in life by other factors. And what about symptoms?
That's one of the hardest parts. Mito can cause any symptom in any organ at any age. For some, it mainly affects one organ, like the eyes. For others, it affects many systems at once. Common symptoms include fatigue, seizures, diabetes, vision loss, hearing loss, and drooping eyelids. But symptoms can also change over time, even within the same family. One person might have mild symptoms, while another, with the same genetic change, might face different symptoms.
So symptoms vary widely.
Yes, that's why mito can look so different from one person to another, even within the same family.
How is mito diagnosed?
It usually begins with a review of your medical and family history. Then comes a physical exam, which might include blood tests, heart studies, MRI scans, hearing tests, or in some cases, a muscle biopsy.
So even the testing can be different for everyone.
That's right. If those suggest mito, genetic testing is the next step, and that's now the gold standard.
There are two main ways mito can be diagnosed, clinically and genetically, aren't there?
Yes, that's right. A clinical diagnosis is based on your symptoms, health history, and a physical examination. It can confirm mito, but it doesn't always show the exact type. Often people receive this first, while more testing is done. A genetic diagnosis uses genetic testing to look at your DNA and confirm the specific type of mito. Sometimes it's a simple blood test. Other times, a muscle biopsy may be needed to find the genetic change. In some families, testing can focus on a known gene that has already been linked to mito.
Both approaches play an important role. A clinical diagnosis helps health professionals act quickly, while a genetic diagnosis gives the clearest picture of the type of mito involved. But mito can be hard to diagnose, right?
Very hard. Symptoms vary widely and can change over time. Some people carry a genetic change but never show symptoms, and even if genetic testing doesn't find a known change, a person might still have mito because researchers are still discovering new gene changes that can cause it. Having a diagnosis allows people to work with health professionals to monitor symptoms, create management plans, avoid harmful medications, and even access clinical studies or new treatments.
Most importantly, it helps people feel understood and validated, especially if they've been dismissed in the past. So, diagnosis is complex, but it makes a huge difference. It provides clarity, helps guide treatment, and opens the door to support. So, can mito be prevented?
In some cases, yes. There are reproductive options that can reduce the risk of passing mito to children. These include mitochondrial donation, pre-implantation, genetic testing, and reproductive carrier screening.
And what should people already living with mito do?
Regular monitoring, treating symptoms, good nutrition, and exercise may help slow progression. While mito can't always be prevented, families do have options, and people living with mito can take steps to protect their health.
Are there treatments?
There's no single treatment that works for everyone. Care is individualized, usually focused on managing symptoms. This might include medication, physical therapy, or other supportive therapies. And importantly, research is moving forward. There are clinical studies happening around the world, including here in Australia.
What about a cure?
Not yet. But the Mito Foundation has invested more than $8 million into high-quality research. The goal is to improve quality of life now, while working towards a cure in the future. That means managing symptoms and overall health as best as possible.
But research is exploring treatments and one day a cure.
That's a lot to take in, but understanding the basics is a powerful first step in managing mito.
You've been listening to MitoCast by Mito Foundation. To learn more or find support, visit mito.org.au or call our helpline on 1300 77180. Make sure you follow MitoCast wherever you listen to this podcast to help us spread the word by sharing it with others impacted by mito. Thanks for listening.